since it is Thanksgiving week, perfect time to unveil a new 4-part docuseries on Prime Video, which you could see through Roku Portal today. Premieres exclusively there. It's In the Game, Madden NFL. And joining us in support of that and in support of everything Madden is John's son, Mike, back here, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Good to see you, Mike.
Woo. It's good to be with you, Rich.
Good to see you, man. So let's just jump in before we get to the documentary here. What was it like for your family to hear from the NFL, hey, we're going to rename the Thanksgiving Day games the John Madden Thanksgiving celebration and annually remember your dad? What was it like hearing that news?
You know, that's a great question. And the NFL kind of came to us after, they wanted, Roger Goodell, big supporter of Dad's and vice versa, and Pete Abitante with the league. They came and they said, we would like to honor your dad. And they graciously did not ask what I would like or my mom would like. They kind of, they threw it out there to others. And then they came with like 20 ideas, naming an award and, just a whole menu of things. And among them was the Thanksgiving. And that was kind of the one that they all wanted. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. But I didn't know what it was going to look like or feel like or sound like. And then, as they did it and they unrolled it, Dad was with CBS and then he was with Fox and then, Monday night and then NBC. So he'd hit for the cycle as far as the networks.
Yes.
And he still had great relationships, and all the people that worked with him, were still there, and they all got excited. So, he loved and trusted all those people, and they've done such a fine job with it that it's humbling to sit and watch, what each network rolls out in his honor, and I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, they got the coin with your dad's silhouette as heads, a turducken as tails, and then the John Madden Foundation is going to be benefited this year. It's newly created. Game-used items from the 3 Thanksgiving Day games will be available via NFL auctions, can start raising money. The social media support, I mean, I guess somebody would have explained to your dad what Reddit and TikTok was, but, that's going to happen. And I think it's awesome. And forevermore, Mike. Right? Forevermore.
Oh, and it is. And what's fun for me is like they let's just take one of the other things on the menu that the league, mentioned, and it would be, naming an award, and it would be a guy at a podium once a year talking about, John Madden this or John Madden that. But what I think is fun is the networks are in control of it, and they've all got great tape of him representing himself. And so instead of having Roger Goodell or Peyton Manning at a podium talking about, John Madden was passionate about football, heck, let's just go to the tape and you see him and you hear him and the energy and the arm waving and all the stuff, and then jamming his hand in the middle of a turducken and all that, so it's fun that he gets to represent himself. And I think that's appropriate. And that'd be the best way to here's a slice of John Madden. We'll let him handle it from here.
I love it. What's your first football memory, Mike Madden? What is that?
Oh boy. Dad was a football coach. So even as a kid, I remember in kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher put a newspaper article up and said to the class, does anybody know who this is? And I, of course, was the only one. It was the Chronicle, the green sheet. And Dad had just been hired as head coach of the Raiders. And so Mrs. Kessel went around the room and nobody knew. And I was blushing. And she says, Mike, do you want to tell everybody what happened? And yeah, my dad just, he was a linebacker. I don't even know if I knew. Anyway, Dad just got hired as the head coach of the Raiders. So that, yeah.
In kindergarten, huh? So you were a kindergartner when that happened. So, were you just hanging out in the locker room as a first, second, third grader with some of the greatest Raiders in the history of the Raider organization, Mike? Was that a scene?
No, the answer to that is hell no. Um, but it is an interesting thing. No, when Dad was hired, I was 5, 6 years old,
Yeah.
and then so there's kind of three chapters. There was the first chapter where it's no and hell no, and then it was kind of okay. Let's bring the kids around. And the Raiders, training camp was 2 months long, and Dad would go up to Santa Rosa right after the 4th of July, and Mom says you guys can go and hang out with your dad, but you can't sit at the training table and get a New York steak in front of you and have your dad cut your steak. So the big test to go off to training camp was you got to be able to cut your own steak.
Oh, yeah.
And so once we could pass that test, we got shipped up to Santa Rosa for a week or two during training camp.
So Ken Stabler never babysat you, Mike? That never happened?
No. No, like I said, in the early era, it was just, stay the heck out of the way.
Okay.
Get hurt. The medium chapter was, okay, you can cut your steak, eat over here, go over here, and, just, don't disappear off the property. And then the third chapter is when Dad finished, I was a high school football player of my own. So I was playing myself, and then the later guys, the Mickey Marvins and the Lester Hayes, those guys were now, only 7 or 8 years older than me. So I did have a different relationship with them that we had with the older players.
I love it. So last one for you on the memory lane here. So he never took you even to the set of a Miller commercial? Did you ever go to a set of one of those, Mike?
Well, now, yes. So now by the time he retires, I'm in high school. And yes, we did go to the set. I went to the first Miller Lite, and that was our first train trip across the country. Actually, was to go from California to New York on the train for him to shoot the very first Miller Lite, where he's just in the bar by himself, busting through the paper.
So did you meet Rodney and Boog Powell and Dick Butkus? Did you meet them all, Mike?
No. I never made it to a reunion. But like I said, we were there at the first one where he did it just by himself. And but no, he would come back from those reunions, and he had the most fun. All those guys had the most fun, and that was it was more than just doing commercials together. I mean, that was a club, and Dad would come back with a fistful of stories coming back from the reunion shows.
I bet. So It's in the Game, Madden NFL is a new 4-part documentary series that's right on Amazon Prime Video starting today, and you can watch it here on the Roku portal. So what's this? It's kind of crazy when your dad went in the hall. I believe it was 2006, because I'll never forget that class. It was big for NFL Network, too. It was so huge. And Mooch was sitting to my left, and he and your dad go way back, like the proverbial car seat, with the bocce ball tournament for charity that they would hold together every single year. And your dad coming by, and so many people that I knew, thought he was getting in because of the video game. I swear to you, Mike, and it's or a broadcaster. We forget about the coach, obviously, but the video game is another thing that your name is attached to forevermore. How did that start?
It started, he was approached by Trip Hawkins, who had just started Electronic Arts, and Dad was impressed with Trip. He liked Trip. I was early at Harvard, and Trip had graduated from Harvard, and so Dad would rub my nose in it. He goes, this guy Trip Hawkins is so smart. He went to Harvard, and they let him make up his own major, and he majored in games. And I go, yeah, that's great, Dad. He knocked on doors that I don't even know exist. But he would tease me. He goes, so what? I go, Dad, I've got 6 choices. I'm gonna major in English. He goes, well, why don't you try to major in games? I go, that's out of my league. But he was impressed with Trip, and it started out as a computer game. It actually had a small chapter where it was going to be a coaching tool more than a video game.
Really?
And then, yeah. And then when the computers got strong enough to do the 22 players that he insisted on having, because before we had Tecmo Bowl, and that was about it, and that was 6-on-6 or 7-on-7 or something. And so Dad insisted on the 22, and then when the computers met it, that's when all the work that Dad and Trip had done, and they'd been at it for 5 or 6 years. By that time, then they were able to transfer it and get it into the Sega Genesis platform. And so they kind of had a head start on the video game because they'd been working at it for several years.
That's awesome. And so what would your dad think this day and age now where players are complaining about their ratings and things, Mike?
Well, they used to complain to him because, I mean, he wants to speak with 7 or 8 players before every game. So he would roll in and they would come in, by the thing to talk to, whoever his partner was. And they would all come in and they always use the phrase, John, I need more juice. I need more juice, juice me up. And so that was the big thing. And he thought at first it was a joke. He didn't know where they were getting this information, and they're coming in, speed. And the players never understood that the computer programmers, they need to use these numbers to manipulate it so it behaves right on the field. And so speed to a computer, it may or may not be speed, but it's something that they need to balance out. So the game is the game, but the players read it and they're, I'm faster than him. How come he's a 94 and I'm anyway. But
I love it.
They used to give him the business.
I love that. So a couple more minutes left with Mike Madden here on the Rich Eisen Show. Who's your favorite person you met on the Madden cruiser, Mike?
On the Madden cruiser was probably, and not met, but that was if I had to string together my favorite 12 Pat Summerall stories. The bus was a great place to visit with Pat. Always had a joke, would fly in and Pat would come down if the bus is leaving at 10, Pat would come down at 9. And a couple of times I rolled down at 9:55 and the bus was gone. So Pat would be there an hour early. So I learned to get there, early myself. And we would, it was a great time to have 15, 20 minutes on a morning with Pat. And he was a great man and a great storyteller, joke teller. So, yeah, anything on the Madden cruiser would probably revolve around Pat.
So I imagine just putting together ages and things of that nature. Did you ever fly on a plane with your dad, or you never knew your dad as a plane flyer ever in your life, Mike?
Yeah, we did. Again, when we were younger kids, that was before Dad won his Super Bowl, which means he lost a bunch of championship games, and that meant that the championship loser coached the Pro Bowl, and the Pro Bowl was a thing in the 70s. And they played, and the winner got twice as much money as the loser, and Dad coached it like it was, if he's not going to get to coach in the Super Bowl, he'll coach the Pro Bowl as if it is. And so, so we went to Kansas City one year, we went to Miami one year, and we went to New Orleans one year, and we did fly with him.
And did your dad swear that the ball hit the ground in the Immaculate Reception, Mike?
No, the ball didn't hit the ground. Dad's bone of contention was that nobody knew what happened, and they admitted that they didn't know what happened. And then the guy went to the dugout, talked to somebody. This is 30 years before instant replay. Talked to somebody, came out of the dugout and signaled touchdown. And so Dad never got an explanation. So it just seemed they didn't know what happened, but they said the Pittsburgh Steelers get to go on and the Oakland Raiders have to go home.
So his contention was that they were adamant about something for which they had no actual proof, is what you're saying.
Exactly. And I don't even know that they were adamant. They needed to make a call, and the call went against Dad, and he never let that one go.
All right. So I'm going to put you in one last difficult position here, Mike, before I let you go. The player that your dad would love to see play today, if he was alive, that it would speak to your father, that your dad would be like, that's the guy. It could be somebody that was definitely playing, before he passed, or it could be somebody that's new to the league. Is there somebody that leaps out at you where that's a John Madden guy from your estimation, Mike Madden?
Oh boy. He he had a great relationship with Andy Reid, and Andy Reid put him on the phone a couple times with Pat Mahomes, and he kind of loved that because Dad had been out of broadcasting for several years, so he didn't have the access like he did as a broadcaster. And I know I would go out to lunch with him the day after. He would have a great conversation with Andy, and Dad, he was really, Andy had Pat Mahomes and put him on the phone, and it was great. And he was really excited the day that he got to talk to Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense, Mike, because when Mahomes got drafted by Reed, the Favre comparisons were the first ones out of the chute, and I know how your dad felt about watching Brett Favre play. That's for sure. So I'm wondering if that might be some of the connective tissue you're hitting on here.
Probably. And then just excellence, I mean, like when you first phrased the question, I think if you asked him, and he never said this, but he loved Art Shell. Art Shell was a great player, tough as net, Art was great. And I know Dad loved, coaching Art and respected Art as a player and as a left tackle. I think if you ask Dad who was the finest player at their position that he ever coached, I think Art would be the answer to that one. The middle of his broadcasting career was the prime of Lawrence Taylor. So he would bring up Lawrence Taylor as one of the all-time greats. And of course, the guys, I mean, Brett Favre, he had as much fun broadcasting Brett and meeting with Brett in the meetings before the game as anything. So he loved Brett. But yeah, he loved all those guys, and he loved the game, and I'm trying to narrow it down as best I can.
I know it's not easy to do. Mike, thanks for the time. Say "Go Blue" to Jesse for me, will you please? I noticed that cup that you were using. My cup is runneth over still. So I appreciate your time here. Enjoy the Madden Thanksgiving celebration amongst the Maddens. And congrats on the 4-part docuseries that's exclusively airing on Prime Video today. It's In the Game, Madden NFL. Mike Madden, happy Thanksgiving to you, sir.
Awesome. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Rich.
Right back at you. You bet. That is Mike Madden here on The Rich Eisen Show, Memory Lane, and everybody check that one out. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.